Among our elected officials is one position that gets little to no airtime, but is one of the most fascinating and necessary to the community. Let's welcome PJ White, coroner candidate for Dorchester County. PJ, it's great to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
Why on earth are coroners an elected position?
I think that it's an elected position. We're one of the last few states that have elections, I think, on the coroner system. I don't believe it should be an elected system. I think it should be an appointed system, because when it comes down to the end and when you actually need a coroner, it really doesn't matter what political party you're affiliated with or what your beliefs are in. There's a job to be done. And again, it doesn't matter what your political party is. So I don't know why it's a elected position.
And you say that there's a difference between a coroner and a medical examiner, and the position that you are running for is a coroner. What is the difference?
So the difference in a coroner and a medical examiner or ME run state system is that a medical examiner is an actual physician, whereas a coroner really doesn't have to have any formal education and have any medical background. It's always been believed that it could be, law enforcement's typically been how it's run, and more states, more counties are getting away from the law enforcement background and leaning more towards the medically educated background for obvious reasons or purposes. And in my opinion, I think you should have a medical education to determine cause and manner of death.
Well, speaking of qualifications, why did you decide to run, and what qualifications do you have to fill this position, to be the best person to fill this position?
So I feel like I'm the best person because right out of high school, I worked EMS. I went on up through that system and became a paramedic. And then I got my bachelor's degree in nursing, and I have 20 plus years of nursing experience, with about 17 of those in the ER. And then I had the opportunity to work as a deputy coroner in the coroner's office under the incumbent. And while I was working for him, I saw a need for an improvement and knew that my plans were to do what I'm doing right now. And I went back to school and got my master's in science with an emphasis in forensic science.
Oh, wow. Oh, goodness. So you definitely have, well, you certainly have a love, I think, for the subject matter, and you also must have a very strong stomach. So in all of your years working in the medical field, in the healthcare field, what are some of the things that you have seen that maybe some of us would not even go near a position like this? Because I'd also like for you to define exactly what a coroner does.
So, well, a coroner is responsible for determining the cause and manner of death and any unexpected, unattended, or traumatic deaths in the county. Also, anybody that's been in the hospital system less than 24 hours, they would be then deemed a coroner's case, and we'd have to investigate.
And by investigation, you mean doing an autopsy?
Not necessarily. Not all deaths need an autopsy. That's where I believe my medical background will come into play, because about 80 to 92% of deaths in Dorchester County are actually natural deaths. And that to be able to have an appropriate or proper determination of cause and manner, you have to be able to interpret medical records, medications, and look at the disease processes of the deceased, or the diagnoses of the deceased, to be able to determine a proper cause and manner of death. Only about 1% of the cases in Dorchester County go to autopsy. Some of those are deemed, because it's a regulation, it has to be sent to autopsy per state or per law. And that's, any MVAs that, you have a driver and a passenger, and that's for legal purposes after the fact. Traumatic events or traumatic calls are pretty easy to determine cause and manner of death. They would just then go to autopsy for investigative reasons and to be able to obtain any kind of effects that law enforcement would need.
Well, a strong stomach indeed. You say that you've been able to kind of compartmentalize things throughout your career. Do you have any upcoming campaign events, any fundraisers, and any information on how people can support you in this race?
So surely they can go to votepjwhite.com. They can donate and see some events coming up. The next big event we have coming up is on May 9th. We have a debate at the Somerville Country Club. So, and other than that, we just had a fundraiser event. I just completed that. So that's the next biggest thing coming up is the debate.
Right. All right, we're going to put that information on the screen. TJ White, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
We're back after this.